Good day and thank you for joining us on BTV Global News at 12. I am Waitman Johanna. Now the news in details. Uganda authorities have shut down internet access and restricted mobile services nationwide, just 2 days before a highly contested presidential election in which long-serving President Yoweri Museveni is seeking a 7th term in office after nearly 4 decades in power. The report.
The shutdown, which began across major cities and rural areas, affected mobile data, social media platforms, and some mobile money services, according to residents and digital rights groups. Telecommunications companies reportedly received directives from government regulators to limit or suspend services until further notice. Government officials said the measures were taken in the interest of national security and public order during the election period. Authorities have previously argued that restricting internet access helps prevent the spread of misinformation and limits the coordination of violence during sensitive political moments. Opposition figures, civil society organizations, and international observers strongly criticized the move, describing it as an attempt to suppress dissent and restrict access to information. They argue that the internet shutdown hampers free expression, limits election monitoring, and interferes with the ability of journalists, observers, and citizens to report irregularities. President Museveni, who has ruled Uganda since 1986, is facing opposition candidates who have accused his government of intimidation, arbitrary arrest, and the use of state institutions to tilt the electoral process in his favor. Previous elections in Uganda have been marred by violence, arrest of opposition supporters, and restriction on media coverage. Human rights organization noted that this is not the first time Uganda has shut down internet service during elections. Similar measures were imposed during past polls, drawing condemnation from regional and international bodies concerned about democratic freedom. As voting approaches, citizens have expressed frustration over disrupted communication, particularly many who rely on mobile internet and digital platforms for news, business transaction, and emergency communication. Observers say the shutdown could have lasting economic and social impacts beyond election day. The election is being closely watched both domestically and internationally amid concerns over political freedoms, transparency, and the overall credibility of the electoral process. Temitope Oluwafemi reporting for BTV News.
Iran's clerical rulers are confronting one of the most serious challenges to the authorities in decades of massive nationwide protests, triggered by economic collapse and widening public anger over political repression. Yet, despite mounting deaths, widespread unrest, and increasing international pressure, analysts say the Islamic Republic's core security establishment remains intact with no clear signs of internal fracture or elite defections that could topple the regime. The report.
Iran's clerical rulers face their toughest challenge in decades. But despite nationwide protests and mounting foreign pressure, analysts say the Islamic Republic's security elite shows no sign of cracking. The unrest began in late December over soaring prices, and then escalated into calls to end clerical rule. One U.S. rights group says over 2,000 people have been killed in the unrest, largely protesters. An Iranian official gave Reuters a similar estimate, blaming the deaths on what he called terrorists. The protests follow last year's U.S. and Israeli bombing campaign, targeting Iran's nuclear program and key officials. Now U.S. President Donald Trump is warning Tehran that continued killings could trigger new American intervention. A White House official told Reuters all options are on the table. Analysts say Iran's security architecture, anchored by the Revolutionary Guards and besieged paramilitaries, makes external pressure unlikely to succeed without internal defections. Together, those forces number close to 1 million. Iran's 86-year-old supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has weathered 5 major uprisings since 2009. But experts warn survival does not equal stability. Sanctions have crippled the economy, and Iran's regional alliances are weakening. Trump has hinted at measures ranging from cyber strikes to restoring internet access for protesters. But U.S. military assets are stretched, and any action carries serious risks. For now, Washington's strategy remains unclear.
To Iran this morning that help is on the way for protesters. What did you mean by that? What kind of help?
You're going to have to figure that one out. I'm sorry.
India's basmati rice exports to Iran have slowed to a near standstill as widespread protests across the Gulf country disrupt trade and heighten payment risks. Trade officials and exporters have said Iran has traditionally been one of the largest buyers of Indian basmati rice, accounting for a significant share of India's premium rice exports. The report.
However, ongoing civil unrest has weakened Iran's financial and banking systems, making it increasingly difficult for Iranian importers to settle payments. As a result, Indian exporters are reluctant to enter into new contracts, fearing delayed payments or outright default. Exporters say that while some shipments agreed earlier are still being executed cautiously, fresh deals have largely been put on hold. The uncertainty surrounding Iran's economic stability has made it harder to secure reliable payments guarantees, especially given existing international sanctions that already complicate banking channels between the two countries. Adding to exporters' concern is the possibility of additional tariffs or stricter trade measures from the United States. Trade officials note that any U.S. tariff or enforcement action could further restrict financial transactions linked to Iran, increasing the risk exposure for Indian suppliers. Many supporters are therefore adopting a wait-and-see approach until there is greater clarity on both the political situation in Iran and the international trade environment. India is the world's largest exporter of basmati rice, with key markets including Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and the United Arab Emirates. The slowdown in shipments to Iran has raised concerns within the industry as exporters may be forced to divert supplies to other markets, sometimes at lower margins. Industry representatives say prolonged disruption could affect basmati rice prices domestically, especially if large volumes intended for Iran remains unsold. Farmers, particularly in northern Indian states,
Venezuelan government says it has freed more than 400 people from prison as part of an ongoing release process, but human rights group disputes the figures, saying the actual number of releases is far lower and the families of detainees remain largely uninformed about the fate of their loved ones. The report.
Speaking in a city long associated with the auto industry and industrial labor, Trump argued that his economic agenda delivered rapid growth and job creation, particularly in manufacturing. He said his policies lower taxes, reduce regulations, and encourage companies to bring production back to the United States. Moves he claimed helped strengthen the economy before it was later disrupted by global events. Trump's appearance came as economic concerns remain high among voters, with many households strained by elevated prices for food, housing, and fuel. He acknowledged those pressures, saying families are hurting at the grocery store and the gas pump, and pledged that a return to his policies would bring down costs and revive the domestic industry. The former president cast the election as a choice between what he described as an American-first manufacturing revival and policies he blamed for inflation and economic uncertainty. He criticized trade practices that he said to disadvantage U.S. workers and reiterates his support for tariffs and incentives aimed at boosting domestic production. The Troy, a symbolic backdrop for the message, has been a frequent stop for candidates seeking to appeal to working-class voters and union households. Trump has repeatedly targeted their constituency, arguing that manufacturing jobs are central to economic security and national strength. Democrats and independent economists have challenged Trump's claim, noting that economic performance is shaped by long-term trends and global factors, and disputing the timeline and impact of his policy. They also point to recent job growth and manufacturing investments announced under the current administration. Still, Trump's Detroit speech underscored the central theme of his campaign, an effort to channel voter frustration over high living costs into support for a manufacturing-focused economic message. As the race intensifies in the key industrial states likely to play a decisive role in November. Zainab Mohammed reporting for
Conservative justices on the U.S. Supreme Court signaled on Tuesday that they are inclined to uphold state laws banning transgender athletics from competing on female sport teams, as the High Court had extended arguments in two closely watched cases. The report.
National Assembly President George Rodriguez, a close ally of President Nicolas Maduro, announced that over 400 prisoners had been released in recent days.
The dispute centers on laws in Idaho and West Virginia that prohibit individuals to sign male at
And to business news, the federal government has proposed spending 3.23 trillion naira on the construction and rehabilitation of federal roads in the 2026 budget, signaling a major shift in fiscal priorities towards transport infrastructure. The report.
The allocation represents a sharp increase from 548.56 billion naira in 2024, translating to a rise of about 489% within 2 years. Budget documents show that the road spending has climbed steadily, with the Ministry of Works receiving 1.13 trillion naira in the 2025 budget for the construction and rehabilitation of 468 federal roads. The proposed 2026 allocation more than triples the 2025 figure, reflecting renewed efforts to complete long-delayed highway projects and expand key transport corridors across the country. Under the proposal, 1.39 trillion naira is earmarked for road construction, 285.62 billion naira for rehabilitation and repairs, and 1.56 trillion naira for other infrastructure works, bringing the ministry's total capital budget to about 3.24 trillion naira. The government says improved road infrastructure is essential to reducing transport costs, boosting trade, and supporting economic growth. Bar Elroy Air partner on $200 million aircraft plant. Bar Group and US-based Elroy Air has signed an initial agreement to form a joint venture that will invest $200 million in a manufacturing facility in Abu Dhabi for autonomous cargo aircraft. The partnership brings together Bar's regional's logistic expertise and Elroy's air autonomous aviation technology. The proposed facility will manufacture the Chapara autonomous cargo aircraft, a hybrid electric vertical takeoff and landing system designed for middle-mile logistics. The aircraft can carry a 300 IB payload over 300 miles and is suited for operations in remote areas due to its hybrid electric powertrain, which does not rely on charging infrastructure. Subject to regulatory approvals, the venture will serve commercial and humanitarian customers across the Middle East and North Africa and provide maintenance, repair, and overhaul services. Bar Group CEO Ahmed Al-Mazur said the project supports Abu Dhabi's ambition to become a hub for advanced mobility and aligns with the UAE's Make It in the Emirates initiative. Deep Capital targets capital boost minerals financing. Deep Capital Management and Trust PLC has announced the execution of a memorandum of understanding aimed at strengthening its capital base and launching a mineral and metals financing initiative across Africa. The development was disclosed in a filing with the Nigerian Exchange Limited. The MOU, signed with BankLink Africa Fund 2, establishes a strategic investment framework to support Deep Capital's recapitalization and long-term growth. The initiative will focus on providing financing, advisory, and capital structuring services to operators across the minerals and metal value chain. According to the company, the proposed investment structures are designed to reposition Deep Capital as a sector-focused, non-bank financial institution. The firm plans to concentrate on minerals and mining, metals, trading, and project finance, supporting Africa's participation in global supply chains tied to energy transition, industrial manufacturing, and advanced technologies. Temitope Oluwafemi reporting for Beetv News.
And lastly, on entertainment news, Popular businessman and Cubana Group founder Obi Cubana has announced that he has embraced Christianity more deeply, describing himself as a changed person following a renewed spiritual journey. He shared the development via his Instagram page, expressing gratitude for God's blessing in his life. Also, actor Keifa Sutherland arrested over alleged assault. The report.
Obi Kubana acknowledged the influence of Pastor Jerry Eze, noting that the cleric played a key role in drawing him closer to God through consistent spiritual guidance. He described his transformation as a turning point and declared 2026 as a significant year in his faith journey. The announcement generated widespread reactions on social media, with fans and followers praising his openness and celebrating his declaration of faith. The development comes amid other recent milestones for the businessman, including his conferment with the Ife-Igbo Jika chieftaincy title by the Traditional Council of Enugu Ukwu na Umuri in Anambra State. Popular Nigerian gospel singer Bumi Adeoye Akinanu, professionally known as Omiji Ojumi, has died after a prolonged illness. She reportedly passed away on Tuesday following complications linked to a leg ailment. Months before her death, the singer had publicly appealed for prayers and healing. In 2025, a video showing her receiving prayers during a church service at GF David Ministers in Ibadan, Oyo State, circulated widely on social media, drawing attention to her health struggles. Omije Ojumi rose to prominence in the early 2000s after leaving a career in banking to pursue gospel music. Her stage name, which translates to Tears of My Eyes, was taken from her debut album that brought her widespread recognition and established her as a notable figure in Nigeria's gospel music scene. Actor Keifa Sutherland has been arrested in Hollywood following allegations that he assaulted and threatened a rideshare driver, according to the Los Angeles Police Department. The incident reportedly occurred shortly after midnight at the intersection of Sunset Boulevard and Fairfax Avenue. Police said Sutherland allegedly entered the vehicle, physically assaulted the driver, and made criminal threats. The victim was not injured. The 59-year-old actor was released after posting a $50,000 bond and is scheduled to appear in court on 2nd February 2026. Sutherland, a British-Canadian actor best known for his roles in 24 and Designated Survivor, has had previous encounters with law enforcement. Past arrests include a 2007 conviction for driving under the influence, an assault arrest in 2009 that was later dropped, and a traffic-related arrest in 2020. And that's it on the entertainment news. Evelyn Zibli reporting for Beetv News.
And that's the Tonight Global News Update. Thank you for joining us. I am Lee Waitsman Johanna. Bye for now.
Religion.